So, Ho'o, is that how I want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly because this is actually the first time that we're actually meeting.
Yes.
We were introduced to each other virtually by Patrick
Yes.
Mokuakane, and I purposely wanted to make sure that I learned nothing about you so that we could organically learn about each other here. So,
Wonderful.
I want to make sure. Am I pronouncing your name? Your
Yes, you
name is
are.
really long in your
Yeah,
email,
it's
so I want
it is
to.
tremendous, and that's only half baked. Um,
Okay,
so
so yeah, what is your full name?
so it's Iwalani, Ho'omanavanui Kanawao. Apo. Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you're cool with me just calling you Ho'o
Oh yeah, so that's
because
what everybody calls
I
me. Everybody
I
calls
would
me that.
butcher that.
Try putting that on a Hawaiian bracelet. That would be a feat in itself.
I would hate to fill out any kind of government forms for you or SAT uh, tests and stuff,
Try my
right?
passport. Oh my god,
Yeah,
there's not
oh my
enough
gosh.
boxes on the thing.
Yeah.
So irritating.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on here. As I mentioned before we started recording, the whole theme of our podcast this month is in honor of Pride Month and just having
Yeah.
different people from all kinds of backgrounds in the LGBT community
Mhm.
come on and share their stories. And this is where I'm coming from a background of, and I think a lot of listeners too, they have a heart for wanting to share, hear, and share with different people from different backgrounds, but also want to have respect for it too, but with limited experience
Mhm.
and just wanting to be respectful. And I thought it was great to have you on here because even just in terms of what is the correct term, like what is the most respectful way to describe you? Is it transgender?
So the funny thing is it took me a long time to figure that out as well. Um,
All good.
so um, I finally come to the realization that I'm transgendered. It's taken a lot of what you call it therapeutic sessions with doctors and talking to family members and it's just it was hard. It was really hard trying to come to that conclusion. I'll explain why. So growing up, I grew up in a very staunch LDS family, like very 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 staunch. I was raised by my grandparents. So my grandfather was a bishop. My grandmother was the Relief Society president, which is like the president for the Women's Auxiliary in the Mormon Church, and I was pretty much born and raised with that, that thinking growing up. So
And was that here in Hawaii?
I was here in Hawaii, and so growing up, it was always in the back of my head, or not in the back of my head. I shouldn't even say that. In the forefront of my head, you were
Yeah.
always taught that being mahu or being homosexual it's wrong. You know, so
Hmm.
growing up, I was very 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 torn as a very young child, and I remember that I I would watch TV with my aunt, my uncle, with my ohana, and I would sit down there and watch, and I would catch myself saying, "That is a handsome actor," more times than I would say, "That's a beautiful actress." Oh,
And how old were you when you started
oh, so
realizing this?
so that actually happened when I was about maybe 5 or 6.
Wow.
So I mean, and I had no idea what this was, so I
Hmm.
just went with the flow. I thought maybe everybody goes through this, nothing big, nothing new, and then you go to elementary school and you find that I had more fun hanging out with the girls than I did with the boys. And at that day and age, like in this day and age, boys have no problems hanging out with girls. But in like the 80s, punishment was boys had to hold hands with the girls. That was like your
Yeah.
punishment. If you don't listen to me, you're gonna hold hands with the girls. And you're like, no, I want to touch them up. And it was I would rather have held hands with the girl than hold hands with the guys. Like there's just something weird when you're growing up, and then intermediate school happens, and that's when I start to find out where I am, but not figure out exactly what it was. So I had my first girlfriend at 7th grade. we'd walk to school together, and she would put her hand around my shoulder, and I would never hold her hand. I felt so bad for her. I would never hold her hand because I just felt weird. It like just felt wacky. But all I knew was boys had to date girls, and that's what. So I just began, I'm gonna try, and it just
So was it her was she the one that asked you out? Like, how did that
yeah. So
relationship
she
start?
asked me, like we were just talking story. We would just meet, we met on the bus because we caught the same bus from the bus stop that's down the street. We caught the same bus from here to Kalakaua Intermediate. So on the bus, we got to know each other, and then she asked me out, and I'm like, okay, not thinking anything, and because I'm thinking that's normalcy in my mentality that I was taught. It's normalcy to go on with females. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. But I just could not hold her hand. I couldn't even kiss her. No, I couldn't even. It grossed me out for some reason, and that lasted maybe about half the school year, which is what,
Wow.
4 months, 3 4 months,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I couldn't do it. And then eighth grade rolled around, and then that's actually when I actually really started to settle in. And then high school comes around, and there was at Farrington High School, there was a actual group that was made by the what you call it, the peer leadership group. Like the counselors
Hmm.
and stuff. That was called
Yeah.
it was called the Chrysalis group. So it was for people for boys who didn't exactly fit into the masculine role, and the girls who didn't fit necessarily into the feminine role. So it's pretty much for the mahous, So you had the mahous and the lesbians, and you just kind of threw them in one like big after school group. And that was when I came to the conclusion. I was like, that's why I didn't like my girlfriend in intermediate. It's because it's I literally thought it was gross because I'm not attracted to that. And so, they really helped out a lot. And
How did you come to the decision to attend that first meeting? Because
okay, that's a
yeah.
good question because um, they had they originally had 3 people join, and they asked these 3 people if they knew anybody else in the school that would be willing to join this group. And so I just happened to be friends with one of those 3 people. And so they said, "Hey, you want to come to this group with us?" I'm like, okay, just so long word doesn't get back to my house that I'm in a group for almost, for the LGBT gang in school. And so that's how I started going, and I found that's where I started to find my niche in life was at this group. And then life goes on. Now this is where life gets really interesting because life goes on. And as a young child, I've always wanted to serve a full-time Mormon mission, which is 2 years abroad. Yeah.
Right.
So I shoved my Mary back in my closet for 730 days to be exact. And I decided to go on one. So I went, and I I'm glad I did because it made me grow up a lot more, and it also made me a lot more vocal about things because I would never talk to my grandparents about anything like that, like anything about LGBT, anything, nothing like that, in any shape, in any way, shape, or form. So I go on this mission. I come home. Of course, I'm happy to be home, but everybody's like, oh, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. I go to church for a little bit, and I had came to this conclusion that I got to stop living this lie and just come clean. So I came out to my bishop, and thank goodness in Hawaii, um, we all know that everybody has a mahu in their family somewhere, and they're not
Hmm.
hidden, they're not shunned away. So my bishop, being one Hawaiian guy, he goes, "Okay, well, that's not going to stop you from coming to church. If you want to come to church, you can." But I still never tell my grandparents, which was like the hardest thing for me because the one thing you don't want to do is ever break your parents' heart. That's like the number one fear of any child. I did not want to break their hearts, and so uh, I
Up
carried on.
until that point, did they ever give you reason to think that it would break their heart if you
Oh,
came out to them?
okay, yeah. So this is the funny thing. So my junior in high school, um, I had lost a bet with my friend who was graduating that year. This is 1999. I lost a bet, and she said, "I dare you to come to my graduation and drive." No problem. So I had some friends. I had some friends. I borrowed their wigs, borrowed my friend's dress, and she put my face on everything. So I'm walking around loud and proud. I'll never forget it. I had this silver tube top. I had these silver high heels in mud. Hello. I had silver high heels. I had this page boy cut hairdo, and I was decked. And one of the people in my church was also in attendance at that graduation. So that Sunday, I get called into the bishop's office. Now, at that point in time, it's not the same bishop I came out to. It was a different person. So he kind of just pulls me on the side and he goes, "So what's up?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And it's that question, that tone of voice where he knows, he knows something's up. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Nothing." He goes, "So what's up? What's going on with you at school?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're at the graduation." So I told him what happened, but again, I backpedal. I tell him, "Oh, it was a dare. My friend who's graduating dared me to do it, so that's why I did it." And he goes, "Well, uh, I heard that you're in this group for trans people." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" So total deer in headlights moment. So
Yeah.
I was, I said, yeah, and so even more so I backpedaled. I was like, it's not for the mahood. It's just for people, for people who don't fit in the normalness of life. I don't play football. I don't hang out with the jocks, so I joined that group because I'm not part of the in crowd. So he believed it at one point in time. So of course I had to tell my grandparents. And the first thing out of my grandmother's mouth was, "If you gay, it's gonna break my heart." I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"Okay, then you know what? I'm gay. Guess what?" So I literally just didn't say a thing. And then go on the mission. I come home. I come to terms with myself. And unfortunately, 2 years after I come home in '06, my grandmother passes away. And then now it's just me. In the house, it's just me, my grandfather, and my uncle. And so, we're um, hanging out. And one day I just tell my papa, I go, "Papa, I gotta talk to you." He goes, "Okay." And I just tell him, "I'm Mahu." And the funniest thing happened. He goes, "Okay." And I thought he was going to kick me out of the house. I was ready to pack my stuff and move out and everything. And he just said, "Well, I'm finally glad that you came to terms with yourself because we've been waiting for you to tell me." You frickers, man. It would have been so much easier if I had known that it was okay to tell you. And like, yeah, like, and the one thing he always I remember, I'll never forget him always telling me was this: just remember who you are when you walk out that door. So long you can come home and you can say that you didn't shame your last name, fine. You're fine. Like, why couldn't you have told me this before? You know,
Did did you find out, like, did he ever say, like, we tried to give you hints or opportunities to say anything, or?
not at all. He didn't say nothing like that. But the funny thing was
Hmm.
this: my great grandmother, when I was born, tells my grandfather in Hawaii, she said, "Kaya pepe ne, halahi lahi pa oya," which means this child gonna be soft when he grows up.
How does she know that?
That's the thing. But I was literally like still very much a newborn. I go, "Kaya pepe, ke lahi lahi ne." This child is soft. Will be soft. I was like, see, and that's the reason probably why I say you watching me. That's why you're the reason why I came. I'm like, why? But yeah, so it's been one heck of a ride so far. Yeah.
when you said that your grandmother said that it would break her heart. Do you feel like you understood why, or did
Mm.
like, because that's a tough thing to hear,
Be right.
knowing that who you are would hurt somebody that much.
Well, thinking of it now, um, and this is just, I don't know what she was thinking, but what I'm thinking now is every parent wants their child to grow up, um, obviously living a life of normalcy. Um, and to her, yeah,
Safety, yeah.
normalcy, safety, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And to her, she wanted to see me, grow up, raise a family, and stuff like that. And plus, so I'm the oldest grandchild, so even more so, she
Oh
wanted
wow,
me
yeah.
to set the stage for well, not only my younger siblings, but my younger cousins and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, being in a place where I've raised nephews and nieces before, I know I can kind of guess what she was trying to say, because I mean, I'm not saying that if they would, as hypocritical as it's going to sound, if they ever told me that they were mahu, it wouldn't bother me at all. Like, if you want to be, if that's what you are, then that's what you are. But in my head, that's not the first thing I think of. I'm hoping so. Like my nephew, Kavika is like, okay, when you grow up, I cannot wait for you to get married, have kids, your wife, and that's the first thing you think of, because we're just so naturally bred to think that you need to marry a woman and you have to have a family, and that's just the way it's going to be. Case closed. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, especially in that time, like mid 90s, early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
uh, for my grandparents, it was okay for other people to be it, but it wasn't like completely okay to have somebody so closely related to be
Mm-hmm.
like that too.
Yeah.
So
Did your grandpa ever tell you? Because he said, "Oh, we always knew and were waiting
yeah,
for you." Did he ever explain like that he had conversations with your grandmother to
no,
give you an idea of what she would?
I didn't even
Wow.
ask. Like, just that answer alone just made life so much more bearable and so
Yeah.
much more easy. And so, I mean, ever since then, it's just. And one of the other things he said was, when you leave the house, not just like when Hoka. Don't just trashy. Put something on with sleeves. Be nicely modest. And all this kind of stuff. Like, yes, Papa. Yes, Papa. Yes, Papa. You go out to the nightclub and you want to wear something a little bit more skimpier. So I'd walk out with like a little. I had this long floor length leather jacket, and I'd have like these real baggy pants that I would wear. And as soon as I get out, I take off the pants. Take off the jacket, jump in my car, and I go. So thank goodness. But he was after I told him what happened, it just seemed that life seemed to be so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I started telling a lot of, especially younger kids that belong to the Mormon Church. I just tell them, like, there is, you don't have to be scared or worried. If your ohana is going to ostracize you out of your household, then give them some time. They'll come around. But like, you don't have to be scared. We all gotta face one trial sooner or later, and we cannot just run
Mm-hmm.
away from problems. So deal with it head on and go. So I help with a lot of especially younger children, not children, I shouldn't say children, younger teenagers who are like have questions. It's like, oh no, trust. I know what you're
Yeah.
going through. I know what you're going through, and so
I think it's interesting because I think everybody inherently, whether I think they just have questions, but because it's such, well, I think now it's a little better, but especially back then,
no, yeah,
even just having questions, you get judged for having
yeah,
questions. So
exactly,
you're bred to just be quiet,
yeah.
don't say anything,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
And
then,
so now,
oh no, go ahead.
yeah,
Oh,
no, go
sorry.
ahead.
So
No, no, no.
shucks, I forgot what I was going to say. No, carry on. What were you going to ask?
No, I'm saying so that now that you are in a position where people are coming to you because they have questions, it's got to be an interesting feeling for you growing up feeling scared to ask questions and now
Oh
being in
yeah,
a position to give
it
people
is. It
comfort to
very
have
much
questions,
is.
right?
The funny thing is when we were in high school, you know, if 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 one of my classmates who's a male went and go kissed, like just a greeting kiss, like to go kiss one of our other friends who was Mahu, they were like, oh, like they already get classified now.
Yeah.
But then now, I mean, I had to learn that like maybe in the mid 2000s, like 05, 06. I had to learn that like I would walk around and people would come and they come say hi, like oh hi ho, and these guys are coming up like hi yo, wow, like what the hell just happened? Like that. Oh, time really has changed, and it's true. Like um, with the resurgence of Hawaiian culture and language now, I'm also thinking that men in the Hawaiian culture now are being very stable and secure in who they are, that they can actually go and express their aloha for somebody outside of a handshake, especially somebody with that doesn't exactly look like somebody who you should shake a hand with.
Hmm.
So it's just it's new for me, and it's still kind of new having like um, even the labels, like you was either mahu or you weren't, and growing up, and now they have like what did I'm transgendered queer, or I'm fluid,
Yeah.
gender fluid, or I'm like, man, there's so many now, and at times I really wish that we had that understanding back then, because it would make life a lot easier too, to try and figure out what I am, instead of being like, okay, you mahu, okay, you're not mahu, it's just kind of confusing. But
So for you, as far as being, so you consider yourself transgender.
yeah, so I've been
So what does that mean for people who don't understand it?
okay. So transgender means that you're born male, or you're born one way, but you don't have that mentality of that gender you're born in. So in uh, locals we call that mahu wahines. Yeah, so you're mahu that wants to be a woman. So you're pretty much a male that wants to be a female, and they have the
Mm.
mahu kane where the females want to be the males. So now, thank goodness, because uh, if I came out in the 90s trying to transition, that would have been a pain, because hormones weren't prescribed by doctors, at least to my understanding. They a lot of old timers would tell me, go to the store and buy birth control, because it was cheap estrogen, and you just pop it every day. And back then, I'm pretty sure you're going to need your parents' consent, and I'm pretty sure my
Right.
they're not going to consent to me getting that kind of stuff. So um, it's a lot easier to be who you are nowadays, and that I really, really, really admire, is that these adolescents now actually have a place where they can actually be themselves, without any judgment, where information is given out freely. We're not we're not in that day and era where we get we get beat up for being mahu, or you know like we're we're always told the horror stories where back in downtown Honolulu, if you're trans, you had to wear a button that says I'm a boy, because
Oh, what? I
yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
that.
so there was a button that says I'm a boy. You had to wear it. It was law that you had to wear that. Yeah,
Oh,
it was nuts. This is when you could have
what was the reason?
dumb
Wow.
sailors who couldn't tell the difference. Now I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, they literally had to. And I have some friends who are around in like the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they still have their buttons that say "I'm a Glade boy."
Wow. It's funny that you mentioned about taking estrogen and stuff like that, and I think for people who don't understand or are not as familiar with it, they would probably argue like, oh, well, why do you need something? You saying this is helping you feel like who you truly
Mhm.
are. Well, why would you need something synthetic or outside helping you, right? And I can relate in the sense of like I've started taking medication for anxiety and depression, and so it's like I can say the same thing where now that I've been taking it, I finally feel like who I am and who I want to be,
Right?
because it felt like before I didn't have control over these emotions because of whatever the chemical makeup or
Mm.
things going on within my body. And I think that's something, it sounds like similar to what you had to go through, which is in order to feel like who you truly knew yourself to be, you needed some assistance with medication or even just like talking to other
Right.
people, being able to say things,
Very
right?
much so. So, hey, if you can go on and get your nails done, I can go and get an estrogen shot. Don't judge me. You
yeah,
putting you
yeah,
putting
yeah.
that fake crap on your nails. At least mine
Right.
comes from something. It's
Yeah.
not made in a petri dish. It's an actual hormone that people actually produce. So like,
yeah.
so don't talk to me
Yeah.
about it. So oh yeah. So hey, if you can cut your hair and do your nails, if it makes you feel better, do it. People who go and they get plastic surgery, hey, if it makes you feel better, do it. Like,
I love that you brought that up because yeah, I think like especially people who are judgmental about this, I in my head, and I guess I'm judging too. I imagine them to be that type of
yeah,
person who either a does get their nails done, gets their hair done, gets the estrogen or the shots in the lips and
yeah,
Botox and stuff.
exactly.
Like, I can see those being the most critical
Hmm.
people, right?
And they're the
And
ones.
it's like
You just
they
take
should
it with
get
a
it.
grain of salt, and a proper gesture with a certain finger, and you're good to go.
You're going back to growing up in the church,
Hmm.
and I think religion plays an interesting because for me, I grew up in a very strict Christian home, so I also struggled with um, feeling like okay, I was always raised to think that homosexuality is wrong, it's a sin and such, and now being on the outside looking in, seeing how that's being pushed across as agendas to try to um, go against the LGBT community and such. And today I watched something on TV. It was a father at a church, and he brought up a great point. He's like, of all of the things in in religion, why is it that a lot of these Christians or religious followers they just hone in on this one single topic, it's like religion should be about many different things instead of just one a single topic issue. And I thought when you're sharing your story, I was like, how was it for you feeling like you probably checked off all of the lists of everything in your religion of like, yes, you are a good solid,
Right?
Mormon, but there's just this one thing like, why is that one thing worse than say there's probably people in your church where you saw like they were drinking or doing drugs, like all these other
Hmm.
quote unquote sins, and yet it seemed like they're comfortable with it. They
Right.
didn't hold this pain and guilt that you were feeling. Did you feel that and experience that?
Okay. So the funny thing is with that is after I came home and I came to terms and I came out. They have this thing called a mission reunion where all of the missionaries are invited back for this one big meeting, just to chit chat and stuff and see how everything is. And I get a invitation from the mission president saying, "You are invited to attend the mission reunion going to be held at Salt Lake City, Utah at this time, at this day, and you're allowed one guest." So I'm thinking, do I go? Do I not go? Because I love the people I serve with. I would love to see how all of them are. Just to catch up. But of course, shame kicks in, yeah, and you're like, oh, but you're gonna walk in looking like the way you do now, and they're all just gonna shun you and just pretty much just ostracize you and just don't bother me kind of thing. And I think, you know what? Take life by the balls. Let's just go. So I, got my clothes ready. I booked my ticket and I told my cousin who lives in Utah, like, come with me and be my date. So he goes, oh, okay, okay. So he and I go. Of course, we get lost. We can't find the church building that they're at. And by the time we find the building, the reunion had started. So they opened it up with like a spiritual meeting first. So the reunion had already started like 10 minutes already. So I'm gonna walk in and everybody's sitting down already. And it's just like, yeah. So I grab my cousin's hand. I go, are you sure about this? He goes, just screw them, go inside, and if they don't like it, don't worry. You and I, we're gonna go sit down and we're gonna enjoy it anyway. I was like, okay. So I literally walked in, like holding his arm, like I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I walk in and it was like time went slow because it looked like everybody did this, and it just kind of freaked you out. And my mission president, bless him, because he welcomed me in with open arms. He didn't see anything any different, except maybe the appearance and the clothes, but other than that, he still saw me as this missionary that served under him from '02 to '04. And I came home and I talked to my grandpa and was like, Papa, this is what happened. I feel really the kind of this is like the one piece of advice that my papa had told me, and I will never to my dying day ever, ever, ever forget it. Is that a church building, any church, a Christian church, a Pentecostal church, a Catholic church, any church that's set aside for the worship of deity, um, their first goal should be it should be a hospital for sinners before it's a museum for saints.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I lose it, so I just lose it. I fall in. See, I'm about to lose it right now. So I fall in his lap. I just that was like the one piece of advice that I needed at that point in time. And even to this day, I still go to church now. I go
Mhm.
and there's no judgment anymore. Like I go there with, I don't go there hunched over in shame because of my lifestyle. I go up there as a normal person. I stand up with my shoulders back, very, very stately, and it's it's all good. Like nobody rails me. Nobody teases me. Oh shucks, I should turn this off. Hang on. Sort of like nobody persecutes me in any way, shape, or form. So
Mhm.
it's that's going to be embossed on my tombstone when I die.
Shoot, I want that message to be shared more. I think
Right?
it's getting that idea either doesn't exist out in a lot of places or it's gotten lost. Because I mean, I grew up having to read stories of the Bible and stuff, and all of the stories about Jesus I read is he's surrounded amongst
Yeah,
everybody, not only just that little
exactly.
select group of holier than thou type of
Yeah.
people, right?
So and I always tell everybody, and this is my grandfather telling me, he goes, just think of it. The first recorded miracle that he ever did in the Bible was to change water to wine. That was his first miracle. It was to keep the party going. And then you look at it, he administered to all the derelicts first. He could care less about all of the people, the prostitutes, the homeless, the less fortunate. So,
Yeah.
hospital for
What
sinners, not a museum for saints.
what I think is so interesting too is a person seeing a person like yourself, not knowing your story and your background. I would assume like, oh, you're so strong in your convictions, you're so confident, like you don't care what anybody thinks. Like to be able to carry yourself the way you do must be like just like everything is just like rubber bullets bounce off. And then to hear you and your struggles and having to even endure that situation of going to
That
that
reunion.
reunion and being feared, like No one, I don't think anyone would assume that you have that kind of
Well,
feeling.
the whole idea is we grew up in a house where you never let nobody know your struggle. Never let nobody know your struggle. And so um, it's very much so like you never go outside making yourself, oh, woe is me, woe is me, woe
Mm,
is me.
yeah.
You always go out there because if you're going to be a Debbie Downer, everybody else around you is going to be a Debbie Downer too. So better you be the catalyst to wake everybody up than anything else. And it is scary. I mean, even now there are struggles that I deal with. Like obviously going out in public. I hate, when people stare. You walk by, they just kind of, and the first thing that we're thinking is like, oh, they're trying to figure me out already. I know it already. They're trying to figure me out. And then the other thing is like, especially when you're trying to transition, people are so um, self-conscious about voice, about body looks and stuff. And that was one thing I had really had to deal with is just vocally. Like I do not sound like I'm sucking on helium all the time. It's hard, like I hear I can't talk like this. I cannot. I have a headache, and you know, and it gets to the point where just if this is the voice I got, deal with it because you ain't gonna change it. I mean, there's probably a surgery you can do where it'll make it higher, but it's I've had to really, really struggle and learn how to be comfortable in my own skin, and
Mm,
that was like the 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 first thing I had to learn. In order for me to overcome all of like the reunion and hanging out with all that, the first thing I had to be was I had to be comfortable in my skin, and I didn't learn it until after the reunion. And so when that finally happened, I can go on one tank top and one pair of basketball shorts. I don't care, you know.
yeah.
Fine, whatever. I don't have to have my hair slicked back and put thrown up in a bun in the back. No, I don't care. If you know me and you know how I am, fine. If you don't know me and you want to prejudge me, fine. Even better for me because then I don't have to deal with your bullshit. You know what I mean? It's just easier like that. And yeah, it's just being comfortable in that skin that you have because we all cannot we all cannot pick the hand we're going to choose to play in our poker game.
Yeah. What was the most important thing that helped you get to that level of comfort?
Oh, very, very, very good friend. Very, very, very strong family connections. Um, so I play music for a living in the Hawaiian community, um, traditional Hawaiian music, and that's kind of actually what helped me to get over this because we go to the bars, we sing for all of the Hawaiians in the bar, even all the locals. Actually, we sing for all the locals, and whether they're straight, they're gay, or they're asexual or whatever, it's just that enjoyment of Hawaiian music that's our common ground. And it was at times when I would go to work and I would be, like my hair wasn't exactly nicely done because I brushing, I barely have eyebrows on, and
We all have those days.
right, right,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're just not dressed to be, at least in my terms, you're just not dressed to be in front of an audience. But they still go, sis, how you doing, sis? How you? And you're like, oh, I, I'm good. How are you? And that's when I came to realize that most locals, I don't know what it's like in the in the continental U.S., but most locals will will perceive you the way you carry yourself. So if you carry yourself like one wahine or like a female, they're gonna treat you as female. If like
Mm,
one girl carries himself as a guy, they go treat him as a guy, like one of the brothers, yeah, one of the brothers. So it's that is what started to help me out with this thing, and then also just turning a blind eye to idiots who have problems with the way I look or the way I carry myself. They don't pay my bills. They don't put food on my table. They don't They have nothing to do with my life, so why do I let their opinion even bother?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what was that was what helped me the most, was just being in that environment where people accept me for being me and not by what I look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, okay, you know what? I don't gotta put on eyebrow. I shouldn't say that. I should put on eyebrows, but I don't gotta put on eyebrow. I don't gotta look, decent in order for you guys to realize who I am, inside. And
Yeah.
it's thank goodness for local people.
Yeah, I think that was part of what our listener who brought this idea and desire to learn more came about, was trying to understand or hearing what the experience was like for people in Hawaii, because it just feels like Hawaii is very unique and different than majority of other places, at least in our country. Do you Have you heard from other people that maybe are living in other places, or have you experienced in
Mm.
your travels, like that you can explain if there is a difference, and what that
Oh
difference is?
yes, I totally, totally, totally believe so. Um, I tell you one funny story. So when my youngest brother got married, we went. He had his wedding in Salt Lake City. So I flew up to Utah, and my middle brother who lives in Texas flew there too. So we just get over there, and um, we're on our way to the wedding reception, and I'm sorry, not to the actual wedding ceremony, and we were hungry. So I looked at my brother Mark and said, "Let's go grab something to eat before we go." So before we go to eat, my dad called me up like, "Hey, come pick me up. I don't have a ride to this thing." So we pick him up and we take him over to. We'd have to go grab something to eat because we didn't eat yet, and it's like 11 in the morning. So my baby brother, was a the wide receiver for the BYU football team.
Mm-hmm.
So in the BYU community, he was a little superstar in Orem, Utah. So I mean in
Mm-hmm.
Provo, Utah. So we get to this barbecue place, and we're standing in line. Now I'm in this purple and blue like accordion dress, and my date is in, he's dressed up, and then my brother, my sister-in-law, and my dad were all standing in line waiting to order, and my father is in the back, and of course, so somebody that's behind him, taps him on his shoulder, goes, "Hey, Mr. Apo," and so my dad turns around and is like, "Oh, hey, it's one of my baby brother's teammates who's on his way to the ceremony too." So, he introduces Mark and my sister-in-law Teresa, but fails to introduce me and my date, who's Blake. I'm just like, this mother is totally just kicking me out of this conversation. Wow. And this is why I say it is different, because later on the boy comes in line and I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't meet you. I'm the oldest of the bunch of three. I'm Ross's oldest sister." He goes, "Oh, nice to meet you, nice to meet you." But I go, "This is Blake." It was just talking, having a grand old time. And then when we get to the actual ceremony, it's the older people who have the problem and the issue with me being who I am and why I'm there. I actually, some of them who weren't part of their family and weren't part of our family, just the friends of theirs, they come by and they give you like the little side look, like, and you just want to like throw something at them or stare back and give them like one stupid face, just so that you catch them staring at you.
Yeah.
It's it's just, I think, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but the younger generation now seems doesn't really care. Like, you are who you are in social. It's the generation before us that has like the stigma behind us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They already stereotyping us as disease carriers and rapists and pedophiles and all
Mm.
that other bull crap that comes along with it. So in the mainland, definitely, like home here, it's such a melting pot, not only with race, but also with sexual orientation. You know,
Yeah.
everybody has friends who are LGBT, has co-workers, has family. You know, we're all over the place, and they don't hide us. That's the fabulous thing. They don't
Mm.
hide us. We're not the secret that they have to hide from everybody. You know,
Right.
they keep us in the forefront. Like, oh yeah, that's my cousin. Oh yeah, she, yeah, she's the kind. And that's what they do. Yeah, they don't want to say she's Mahu. They don't want to say she's the man. Yeah, she's the kind. Yeah, but they mean it in in terms of endearment. But it's it's just so much easier. And if we weren't around, life would be absolutely horrifically boring and gray.
I agree.
Yes, we have to have a little bit of color in things, and we're
Yeah.
the we're the the Dutch boys of life.
And I never understood why it was so looked down upon, because it just seems like such a happy, like there's a lot of laughter and joy. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like what you bring is like sadness and
right.
anger and violence.
No, not,
It's like
not.
celebration all the time,
Yes,
laughter.
absolute. On the contrary, totally on the contrary. We're here to have a good time. Don't screw around with my good time. Like if you want to be depressed and upset, go ahead, be depressed and upset, but don't do it around me, brah. I have no time for it.
what's what's I'm assuming there are still difficulties with, like, you face your difficulties within like the general population, but within the LGBT community, there's got to be difficulties as well, just
Oh
like in
yeah,
families and such.
there's always.
What's been the difficulties that you've seen, and maybe it's getting better or whatnot, but for people who aren't as within the community, what kind of things do you see that are
Okay.
difficult for you?
Ooh. So what I have a hard time with is people's pre-notions. Really, like they expect that mahus are no more than glitter, rhinestones, and lip syncing. No, no,
Mm.
no, 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 no. Thank goodness, fortunately, by the grace of God, I grew up in a very Hawaiian home, and so, aside from um, learning how to play music and stuff from family, we had to learn how to, dig emus. We had to learn how to, do the boy stuff too. You know, I,
Yeah.
like what's the adage? Mama didn't raise no. Yeah, exactly. So so everybody has this preconception that we're all like feeble, like we're like the like we kind of get ourselves dirty. Oh no,
Mm.
no, 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 no! Trust me, he can get dirty. You know, like when it comes down to it, we were always like, especially my aunties and stuff, when they needed help doing stuff, whatever it was, we could go from the kitchen to the emu in a snap of a finger. Oh,
Mm.
I need help cutting vegetables. Oh, okay. Hey, we need help digging the pit for the emu. Okay, I'll be right there. And you go outside, you dig, 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 you come in, wash your hands, and go back to doing the delicate one. And then you have stuff like, okay, we need help unloading the tables. You unload the tables, and then you ask me to go and decorate the tables. Put your little tinges here and there, and it's we're not feeble people, and that we're not just tied down to just being all about makeup and glamour and everything like that. Granted, yeah, it makes a big part of who we are, but that's not all we are. You know, we stand up for things that are right. We stand up for things that are, we stand up for our family. And I always say, ain't no better friend than one mahu. Because you go to a nightclub and you can party out with one mahu, you can have the mahu go get the girl's phone number for you because you're shy. But then once one brother starts for ready for showdown, trust me, ready for showdown with you. You just let us know. You just let us know, like, yeah, that's the guy over there. We'll take off the earrings, put the hair up in one bun, and we jump in. I believe that it's very much because of what we are, what Hawaiians believe that we are. Um, Hawaiians believe that in every individual, a Hawaiian believes that we have a cool side and we have a hina side, which means we have a masculine traits and we have feminine traits. And when we're born, it's then that we cling to whatever traits these are, and that's what makes makes us that gender supposedly. So so but then here comes the Mahus now, and we're just kind of stuck in the middle. So um, when I heard the thing about gender fluid, I was like, that's the perfect way to explain what a Mahu is. We're just kind of the ones that are stuck in the middle.
Mm.
But we're not really stuck.
Right, right.
If we need to be more on the masculine side, we pull from that masculine energy. If the situation requires a more feminine shot, then we pull from our feminine energy, and that's how Hawaiians will always think. And so that's why as Mahus, especially in old, they were the ones who were the healers, the culture keepers. They were the teachers, and that's why Mahus in general, they they're pretty much very good with taking care of children because we've always been the nurturing kind,
Mm.
and then so we nurture like a mother, we bust you up like one dad. That's just the way. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. But
Yeah.
like a lot of my nephews and my nieces and stuff, they still call me mama. Because I'm not necessarily their mother, but they spend most of their childhood at my house.
Mm.
I changed their diapers, I fed them, I bossed them up. That's it's parenting and it's fine. But what I loved about it, you could send them home with the parents after. But
Yeah.
aside from that, it's just it's naturally just our nature to be caring of children and especially our elders. We take care of our elders. We're the ones who will stay home and make sure everything's okay. We'll cook, we'll clean, we'll do whatever it is. And not saying that men or women don't do that. I'm not saying that. It's just that we're just more prone to doing that out of instinct and not by
Mm.
upbringing.
Yeah.
We just malam to take care of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that was just the one thing that I used to drive me nuts. All of these young ones that come up and then they're thinking that the nightclub is like the gay life. Yeah, if you're like a party animal, but there's you work hard, you gotta play hard too.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot just play all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what used to just a little bit. This is what used to grind my gear. Was when you go into one club and all of these younger people are calling all of these older girls mother, mother. Yeah, and it's like, mother, where the hell you came from? And I grew up in 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 the Mahu community. You had it, like a drag mother. It's even like on like Paris is Burning, on that documentary about
Mm.
the ball scene in New York. You had houses, all of these houses. So you had the house of so and so's name, the house of so and so, and then there was a house mother, and they were the ones who took care of the house. Same thing in here, but I believe that in Hawaii it's a little bit different, only to the fact that if you want to call somebody mother, you treat them as such. You put their status
Yeah.
up as that, and that's what used to
With
irritate me.
respect.
Yeah, and that's what used to irritate me in a nightclub with the young kids going over there, mother, mother, mother. I'm like, who the hell is your mother? Do you take care of her during the week, or you just call her mother on a Saturday night when the club is open?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's what used to tick me off. And even to this day, people just go like, "Mama," I'm like, "No, no, 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 I'm not your mother. You know? I want to call you Mama. No, 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 no. You're not my. I'm not your mother." And it was it's that's what I, I keep trying to deal with is these people's preconceived notions that they think they know what we're all about. Not
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. They just scratch
It's
they
like
scratch the surface.
it's like you spend your whole life trying to show how you're different and not being boxed into
Yeah,
one thing,
exactly.
and then you get out of that and they put you right in
They put you
another
right back in
box.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been curious because I don't know in depth a lot about Hawaiian culture and the history of like pre, I guess, missionaries arriving with religion. But from what I understand, it seemed like, um, you know, sexuality was very fluid
Mm-hmm.
part of culture back before the missionaries came.
Yeah.
Is that correct? That and then is it that when the missionaries came and brought in religion, then it became like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not
And then they
acceptable?
start,
Is that how it worked?
yeah. So and then they start labeling. So in ancient Hawaii, our chiefs before we had any missionary contact, like our older chiefs would have their wives. There was polygamy going on, but they also had, if you're a woman, you had your punalua, which would be, by today's terms, would be your side salad. The one that you would be seeing on the side. That would be for your women, and then for the men, you'd have these things called your ho'aikane. Now, ho'aikane literally means, if you break it down, means to eat man, like to literally ho to do something, I to eat, and kane is your man. So it literally means to eat males. That's what you're saying. But the funny thing with that is, ho'aikane didn't mean that they were gay. Ho'aikane, and this is just my perception about what a ho'aikane is. Ho'aikane in literally means your friend, but it's a friend that you don't have any bounds with.
Mm.
There's no boundaries to your friendship. In other words, it's like a, how can I compare it to? Brokeback Mountain would be like a perfect example of what a ho'aikane is. They're just friends, but they find pleasure and protection in each other's company, especially where they're
Mm.
engaged in sexual behaviors. And if you think about it, most military men, or I should say military men now, most men who are engaged in war in those ancient Hawaiian times, they were all ho'aikane to somebody, which means they had a ho'aikane in that army, if you would. But you had to have that relationship, because how can you go and fight something and not have that relationship? What I mean by that is, if you're gonna have that kind of relationship, that when we go to war, that guy gonna have your back.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be a ride or die in that war, and he's not gonna turn your back on you. He's not, because he loves you that much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of relationship that these men needed. Now, I'm not saying that that's why they had to go and sleep with each other, but it's just it was a normal thing for them. You know,
Right.
there was no labels as to what you were here and what you are there. There was none of that. And then now missionaries come in, and now they're telling you that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and the whole time it was normal for us.
Yeah, that's what is very difficult for me to figure out and understand. Like if when I put myself in back in those days, to know that something that is totally normal, not even you never question, is this okay? Because it's just that's the way it is, and then to be told something that's so natural and normal for you is so inherently
Like,
evil, and
so
according to
wrong,
them,
right?
it's like
So it's like saying you go on social media like that's the devil, like,
right,
oh
right.
my gosh, and we're all going to hell. That's all there is to it,
Yeah.
But but at the same time, if I was living back then, oh, I think I would have died long time ago, for reals, because if I was back then and I had a man trust and believe, oh, no, 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 I ain't sharing nothing with nobody. That's all there is to it.
You're very selfish.
I am, I am, I am. It's all about me, me, me. I tend to hot. I tend
Have you ever, you're talking about like when people look at you, you could tell that they're looking and judging. Have you ever mistaken that and then found out, oh, they were actually just checking me out?
Okay, so I've never, ever, ever had that happen, because that's the funny thing is, I laugh at it because, I mean, nobody wants to grow old by themselves and stuff like that. And, obviously I'm a very shy and timid thing, according to this interview. Like, so shy, just very quiet, reserved, so I really think that, if I was to ever date somebody, I'd have to like date the shyest thing around. Because if I dated somebody who was like me, we'd be scrapping in no time. Like
Yeah.
we'd be at each other's throat. Who knows? We might be like the next domestic case. You know what I mean? You know, but
Fighting for that spotlight.
right? Yes, but I've never had anybody like look at me like actually check me out or anything like that. So that has yet to happen. I hope it happens soon, though. It would be really nice to be checked out instead of
Well, maybe now
right.
that they know that you welcome it, I think maybe what it is too is they're intimidated. They don't want you
Oh yeah, so that was
to
definitely what
know.
I think. Is like a lot of these people are very intimidated because I'm very loud. I'm very boisterous. You know, I'm not, I'm not shy. You know, and I try to be tactful. I do. I try to be nice about it. You know, does this just make me look ugly? I'm like, it looks good. You know, just
For someone else.
yeah, it looks nice. It looks nice on the mannequin. You know, but you know, but yeah, so I've never had it happen because I'm just a little. A lot of people say I'm intimidating. And no, I'm not.
Well, maybe now when they see this, they'll realize, oh,
Right,
not so intimidating
right.
after
Maybe,
all.
well, maybe now I have to. Maybe now I have to go out and just be real shy.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta
Excuse
just
me.
change a little bit of
Tone it down, Mary. Tone it
your
down. Tone
shtick.
it
Yeah,
down.
yeah. So we never even got into what your profession is, and I know you mentioned that you're a
Oh
musician.
yes.
So what is it that you do?
So I actually work out at this place called Paradise Cove, which is on the west side of the island of Oahu. It's a luau show where you can come to, you know, have eat Hawaiian food. We put on the show for you there, and I sing in the show. But now with this COVID thing, who knows what's gonna happen? But,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah,
So have you pretty much literally just been staying home? Like,
yeah.
have
For the
you been
past
able to
three
do
months,
anything
it's been
else?
wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to go back to work and my uniforms are not going to fit because
Oh.
all I've done is eat and eat and eat.
That had to be scary though when you found out that a lot of like, especially in the beginning, people were thinking, oh, it was being brought in by, travelers and such, and then that's your whole audience is
Yeah,
travelers, right?
yeah.
Were you ever worried like, oh shoot, do I
Well,
got it now?
the the thing was is when we got to work, I was always asking them, "Can we wear masks?" And they're like, "No, you cannot wear masks." I'm like, "Why not?" Like, like
Yeah.
I don't want to. Can we like buy masks and pass it out to them?
Yeah.
Because you just get really scared, and
Yeah.
it's and um and for us, like because our business is so tourist run that if there's no tourists, we don't work. So it's like we were really nervous. So when the opening, when the COVID opened and everybody would come in, they would come by and stand by us and we'd just kind of like, can you not stand by me, please? Because I don't want to be the next statistic. And then the Cove started to do stuff to try and minimize contact with guests. And then when this whole thing blew up, then it's just like, okay, we're gonna lay everybody off, but we're gonna rehire everybody. And but even now, I mean, it was good. It's been good to stay home for the past 3 months because it's been um it's been it's been a good moment for me to see some family members, like my
Mm,
nephews and stuff. I've seen them more in the past 3 months than I have in the past year. They
yeah.
come over and they're like, "Ma, what's for dinner?" I'm like, "Oh, this is that, whatever I made." "Ma, what's for dinner?" "Oh, whatever, this is what I'm having." "When you gonna make this?" I'm like, "Oh, sheesh, you got some pushy, you guys." But
Yeah, I was gonna say,
you know,
man.
yeah, but everybody knows that my house is always open for anybody to come by. If you're hungry, you're in the area, or you're thirsty, or whatever, or even if you needed a place to stay. Like, how you would believe how many drunk people would come and stay at my house. Like, hey, I kind of boss up. I can sleep in your house. I'm like, yeah, where you stay? I stay right down the road. Like, well, hurry up and get inside here. I'll get, I'll get my bed ready and I'll go sleep in the living room and I give them my room. It's like, yeah, knock yourself out. Like, nah, I can sleep on the sofa. I'm like, no, sleep on the bed. My papa would kill me if I ever made you sleep on the sofa. So it's
What is your favorite thing to cook? What are everybody
oh my
like?
gosh.
We gotta have your
So
famous whatever.
so everybody comes to my house for my butter garlic mayonnaise shrimp. Yeah, it's
I think I just got a heart attack hearing the ingredients.
yeah,
My
it's
heart
pretty much
hurting all
yeah.
of a sudden.
It's pretty much yeah. You should see what I put in it. That's what the worst part is. The amount you have to watch the amount. But yeah, like everybody, even from work, people at work when we have potlucks at work for like Christmas parties and stuff. Like, what are you bringing? I'm bringing an empty Ziploc bag and myself. And that's one other thing. But I like to cook anything. So in this past 3 months, I've been checking on Pinterest and trying these funky new things. But nothing beats comfort food for me. So that's what I enjoy making the most.
Yeah. Well, as scary as it sounds, it does sound really delicious.
Oh,
So,
you should try it one day, Nolan.
I, I'm allergic to mayonnaise because I'm allergic to eggs, but I feel like I always make exceptions because I love food so much
Oh my!
that I'm like, well, okay, is this worth
So
the
what
pain that
happens if
I'll
you
be
eat
in after?
mayonnaise?
So it's a lot of gas, indigestion, vomiting, diarrhea, like
Oh my god!
the whole Mount Vesuvius kind of
So you're like lactose
Montezuma's
intolerant,
revenge
but
kind.
oh my
Yeah.
god!
But that hasn't stopped me before. Like my wife will tell everybody like this guy like he's a glutton for punishment because he knows what's coming, but he loves food so much he'll do it. So for you, if it's as good as it sounds, I'll just have to make sure my calendar is clear for the rest of the day.
Well, can't you take like Benadryl or something?
No, it it's not that
Really?
kind of thing. It's just
Oh,
yeah,
it just doesn't
it
mix
just
well with
like
you. They're
yeah.
like lactose
My
intolerant, the kind, but with
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
my
Like
gosh, poor
I
thing,
can't take those like lactate stuff. That doesn't do anything.
poor thing.
It's okay. I've figured it out and I work around it.
Oh my
So
gosh, me
it's
without
good.
eggs. No, I cannot.
It took a long time. Like I love eggs.
I do too.
I
Too
love
much.
cheese and dairy, all that stuff.
I poor thing.
But now there's like vegan eggs and vegan cheese and stuff, and it's been good enough for me. I feel like I still have a little bit of
But it
that experience
never
now.
quite hits the
Stop reminding me of that. I'm trying to be good with this. It's like, why do you want me to suffer?
Oh God.
Well, I know that Paradise Cove is closed and stuff. Is there anything going on with you that as far as like people listening that they could support you in other ways? Like, are you performing in other ways or
Nope.
nothing?
I stay home. I just clean house all day. I actually I just go out and I actually help a lot of like my older aunties who don't have much family here. I'll pick them up, when they gotta go to like when they have their shopping days, because old timers, shopping day to them
Yeah.
is all day long. I like go Costco. I like go Sam's Club. Can we swing by Times? Can we swing by Foodland? Like, oh my gosh! But I mean, it's fun for me, just taking them around. And the funny thing is, for me, it's not the actual action that's fun; it's the banter in the car in between places. Because that, like, I have one, my auntie Lupe. She's 87,
Oh
and
wow.
I take her out, I pick her up, I take her to Costco and stuff like that. So she jumps in a little putt, that they have, and she goes around and she goes shopping. So I just follow her and I carry all of the stuff, I put them inside. And it's when I pick her up and the conversations that we have in the car ride from point A to point B and point B to point C, So it's all of that banter in the car because that's 87 years of life experience that you
Mm,
can't pay for. You cannot pay for that kind of advice and knowledge. And so a lot of that's why I really enjoy it because I would tell her my problems, and then it'll remind her of a time when she was younger and what she did, and then it gives you like an inkling as to what you could do to get
Mm.
your crap together. And it's just old people are a bunch of fun. They're so much fun,
Yeah.
and they're spry behind closed doors. That's what cracks
Yeah.
me up.
The funniest time is when I hear like an old person say something like risque
Well,
or use a swear word. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
you
what
are human.
that's my Auntie Lupe. So we'll be driving down, especially to Waikiki, and then not Waikiki, to like more like the countryside, like Waimanalo, Kaneohe. We'll drive to all of there, and she'll see the surfer boys coming out of the water, and she's all like, "Hey, slow down, slow down." So I'll slow the car down, and she'll be looking out from the especially the vent. And I look at her, I was like, "You dirty old woman," and she's, she's just looking, and she leans back, and all she do is, That's just saying. That's all she's saying. I'm like, Auntie Lupe, you're so twisted. But it's very true. Like they're so spry behind closed doors. But then when we get in public, like, excuse me, where is this? Police woman. You're a little bit more vocal than that in a car.
But when you get that age, I guarantee you're going to be just like that.
Oh,
And
I
you're going
know.
to take all of those,
That'll probably be me
the
too.
playbook.
I wouldn't even tell her to slow down. I'm like, stop the car. Wait.
Get out.
Wait. Go call him over here. Go call him over here. That'll be me.
Well, that sound means I think I got to go take them for a walk.
Oh.
But this has been so wonderful. I'm so glad that Patrick told me to introduced us and told me to have you on here.
All mine. The honor is all mine.
I love hearing your story, and thank you for just being open, having your heart, and just opening everything to us. I think so many of our listeners are just gonna be so blessed by your story, and I just think that the blessings that are gonna come from this episode is just gonna come tenfold. So
I hope so.
I hope this is not the last time we get to hang out. And
Oh,
when this
definitely
all
not. I
down,
owe you a tray of shrimp, man. I'm gonna come and
and I'll show up not drunk and passed out on your bed too. I'll just come and eat.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to spending time with you again real soon.
Yes, mahalo, mahalo.